Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming today. I think I mentioned to a few of you down at City Hall that once I got briefed on the facts of this situation, that I would speak to it later today. So that's what we'll do here now. As I know everyone's aware, there was a fatal shooting that killed a man and injured two other victims and put dozens of Calgarians at risk in Marlborough Park last Monday. Following the shooting, police responded to the area and received valuable information from witnesses to the incident, and that caused them to turn their attention to a particular vehicle that was leaving the area of the shooting. This was the beginning of a complex chain of events that led to the arrest of numerous individuals, the execution of warrants on 2 homes, as well as the execution of warrants on 2 vehicles. Ultimately, a case was made out for murder charges to be laid against 2 brothers, 14 and 18 years old, respectively. In coming to the decision to lay those charges, homicide investigators were acting on the information and evidence that was available to them up to that point. My update today is that new evidence has come to light that causes our homicide team to believe that the 2 brothers were not responsible for the shooting. As soon as the investigators received the contradictory evidence and were sufficiently satisfied with its reliability, they notified the Alberta Crown Prosecution Service, and that led to the charges being stayed in court today. Our homicide investigators and those who supported this investigation share my concern with this unfortunate situation. These charges will have impacted these 2 young men and their family in very significant ways, and for that, I apologize unreservedly. As your police service, we have a responsibility to ensure public safety in Calgary and to hold offenders to account, most particularly in dangerous and deadly situations such as the one in Marlborough Park last Monday. At the same time, we also have a responsibility to ensure that nobody enters the criminal justice system who ought not properly be there. We've reached out to the community to offer supports and to provide additional information and any additional answers that we can under the circumstances. I will be arranging for an independent review to be conducted that will examine the circumstances that led to the arrest and charges. I'm also completely mindful that this investigation continues. We are taking it very seriously in the context of the gun violence that has been occurring in our city. Our investigators remain completely committed to bringing justice to the family of the deceased and to those injured in this incident. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have about this.
Chief, you mentioned your apologies to the community, to these 2 young boys. Their lives forever changed at this point. Of course, in this day and age of social media, people convict people online even before they have their day in court. Speaking to those 2 boys, what do you say to them specifically that they've had a major impact from this?
They have had a major impact. As you say, we'll be happy to meet with them to let them know how this came to be and to answer any questions that we can that might support them in this difficult time. But to your point, this will have an impact on the individuals. It will have an impact on their families and the community, full stop. We understand that.
Was this bad intel? Was this just bad evidence that was provided off the forefront from this investigation, or what led to this mistake potentially?
No, it's very important to understand that the decision to lay charges, in particular in murder investigations, never, ever made lightly. So this is a situation where, again, a complex chain of events led to the threshold of reasonable and probable grounds being achieved in terms of the decision to lay those charges. The system has a backstop there as well. For these types of charges, we consult with the Crown and get charge approval before laying the charges. So you can imagine then, based on what I've told you here, that there was a set of facts and circumstances that led reasonable people to conclude that these young men were responsible for that crime. And that continued up until the point that there was new evidence that came to light to suggest that that may not be the case. I think it's really important that our investigators, when that evidence came to light for them, they acted very quickly, making sure that it was authentic and it was verifiable, but then taking steps right away to notify the Crown Prosecution Service and make sure the charges were stayed.
Did they have any role in this crime at all?
So that's a very interesting question. The investigation continues as moving forward. I would say this: our investigators do not believe that the 2 individuals who were charged were responsible for the shooting.
Chief, can you talk more about this evidence that surfaced?
I can, thank you. So it came forward in the form of a video. there was a member of the community, or I don't know if it would have been a witness, but a member of the community who called Calgary 911 asking to speak to investigators. So the investigators met with the individual, had a look at the evidence, and based on their investigation of the evidence, came to the opinion that it was likely something that they should be paying attention to, and made decisions around the next steps in the investigation.
What's your level of concern, if any, about what this does to the relationship between the police force and the community, or just the general public, about continued trust?
Yeah, I think with the community, I mean, obviously this is going to be a difficult blow, right? We invest very heavily in our relationships with the community here in Calgary. We have community mobilizers in our service that represent the community to the service and the service to the community. We have diversity advisory boards. And so my hope is obviously that we will be able to leverage those relationships, those existing relationships, for difficult moments like this one. That doesn't mean that it would be easy. I understand that. I think the other thing that we see as well is that the communities also know that they have been impacted by some of the violence as well. So they understand that those two things are happening simultaneously. One is their police service has a significant concern for safety in their communities as well. And on the other hand, we have the corresponding responsibility to make sure that that people who shouldn't be in the system don't go in there. So.
Are you asking for any information from the public in terms of the new suspect? Do you have any ideas yet as to who the new suspect is, what they look like, anything like that?
So what I would say is that the investigators made a call even before, as you know, with some of the gang violence or shooting violence that's going on in the city. There has been calls for assistance from the community and community support. So this was a good example of a homicide or an incident where community did call in right away, giving very valuable evidence. So that has been done. That call has been out there. I think if you look back, there's actually thank yous that have gone out to the community for the information provided. So in terms of the suspect, the description of the suspect responsible for the homicide, I would suggest we have that in a couple of different forms right now. But I would also say, though, that if anybody still, I mean, we know that this goes back to last Monday, but if anybody out there has information, additional information that they've yet to communicate to the police about this situation, we would absolutely like to hear from them.
How do officers evaluate the information from the community? How do they make sure that it is correct?
You're speaking about...
Broadly, just how do you evaluate that input that might be getting from the community?
Yeah, well, I think, because the information that came forward on the weekend was in the form of a videotape, we all know that you have to be somewhat cautious these days with things that show up on the internet or videotapes, and there can be modifications. So investigators do have to be careful. I will say that more now with artificial intelligence and the capabilities there, more than ever before probably. But I can tell you that investigators were very interested upon receiving this information and did their own due diligence to make sure that it was authentic, and they believed that this was something that they needed to act on, and act on very quickly, that would change the direction of the investigation.
Chief, can you confirm the video that you're talking about, this new evidence, was posted to the website Dirty News? It shows a man in a red hoodie walking up to the vehicle in question where the victim died and pulling the trigger about 5 or 6 times. Is that the video you're talking about?
So I'm not sure what website it may or may not have been posted to, but the video that I saw that was provided to investigators sounds like that. It did indicate a man in a red hoodie shooting into a vehicle.
Can you talk about this independent review that you'll be doing, like who will be conducting it, what will it look into, things like that, why you're doing it?
Yeah, I think it's just good business. And so the bottom line is, I mean, this is very significant. And I can tell you investigators that are involved in homicide investigations, who are very talented and very professional, are as concerned about this as anybody. I can tell you that they're not happy with what's happened here, although they know that they followed the chain of evidence as it was at the time. I think it's a good idea for us to bring in somebody who's not a member of the Calgary Police Service. So I'd be looking for another police agency and individuals with significant background and history in the management of investigations and decision-making around major crimes, to be able to come in and look at the chain of events that occurred that led to the decision to arrest these individuals and lay these particular charges. I've heard quite a bit of what's happened myself, but I think it's good to bring somebody from the outside, and if there are any lessons that can be learned, if there's anything systemically that we can put in place to prevent this type of thing from happening, then that's what we need to do, and I think that's just good business. No, that's a really good question, though. So the issue here is, of course, these arrests were made relatively soon in time after the incident itself, and so naturally the investigation continues. Investigations like this are complicated. They continue to move on even after individuals are arrested and prior to them going to court. So yeah, nothing stopped in this particular case. There were a number of investigative leads that were put forward to the lab. The bullets that had been seized at the scene and this type of thing. So investigators were waiting for a number of things to come back anyway. So all of that to say that the investigations continue on. And so it didn't detract from anything. It was good that this came forward as early as it did. The only thing would have been better is if it would have come forward sooner.
I know you guys have been very busy with shootings over the last 10 days or so, within 5 days. There was a 6th shooting out in Chestermere the night before this fatal shooting. In that shooting, and video surveillance shows a black pickup truck. Are you working with RCMP at all in regards to whether or not the two are related? We understand that the victim that was shot in Chestermere is potentially the fatal victim's brother.
Oh, okay. I can tell you that we definitely are working with the RCMP. In fact, in our real-time operations center that's just in the other building, 24-hour operations center, we have the RCMP working in there. We recognize that we live in Calgary, the greater Calgary area that is actually surrounded by RCMP jurisdiction. And a lot of the individuals involved in crime don't know, jurisdictional boundaries in that way. But the reality of these type of situations with shootings is we see movement from individuals from other major cities in the country. So in addition to just the RCMP here in Alberta, we are in close contact with our partners across the country when it comes to this type of thing.
Do you happen to know if those two are related, though, potentially?
I can tell you the investigators are speaking with RCMP consistently on this, and I can tell you they will know. I don't know.
Are these two individuals now potentially witnesses for this crime then?
Investigators will determine whether they are or whether they aren't. Just on my assessment, based on what I know, I doubt it, but we'll see.
So you can't confirm whether or not they were at the scene of that shooting?
Oh, the only thing I could say is they were in the area at the time, in the general area. Whether or not they were at the scene or any closer, I don't have that information.
Anything else? No.
Thank you for coming, everybody. Appreciate it.